Your next story of things turning out well is from Roxanne Roberts.
As soon as Rose Hill Manor announced it was reopening May 1st, the Long Island wedding venue was booked solid with anxious brides and grooms who waited more than a year to tie the knot. In what would prove to be a fateful scheduling coincidence, the Givens-DeLuca wedding and the Rossi-Thompson wedding were set for adjoining ballrooms. This is where groom Stephen DeLuca laid eyes on the bride next door, Caitlin Rossi, who turned out to be his high school sweetheart from 15 years earlier, reports the New York Post. What happened next is like a rom-com. DeLuca and Rossi ran off together, leaving their abandoned fiancés with 2 receptions and 265 shocked guests. Now Vicki Givens and Trey Thompson have teamed up for a $350,000 lawsuit seeking damages for wedding costs and emotional distress. And they say they're happily dating. Quote, "This is the strangest meet-cute in history," Thompson told the Post, "but I'm lucky to have found Vicki."
2 weddings happening at the same time result in one groom running off with one bride, which leads to a lawsuit, and the other groom and bride finding each other.
Amazing, isn't that true? What you just heard was taken from a program, from a radio program in the NPR. It is called Wait, Wait, Don't Tell Me. And it has a section called Bluff the Listener, where one of the listeners calls and he is presented with 3 versions of a given news, and he has to tell which one of them is true and which others are false. So this happens to be one of the false ones, but however, even if it's not true, it illustrates exactly the point of unstable matching. What we see is the groom of one given pair elopes with the bride of the other pair. So the matching, the previous matching, the existing matching between the 2 bride and groom and the second pair of bride and grooms, it's not stable because one of them will elope with one of the member of the other pair. So that is what we call an unstable matching, and this is what we are going to talk about today. Imagine a set of young men and young women where both sets have the same number of elements, and your job is to design an algorithm that would take the lists of names of boys and girls along with some information about the preferences of each individual, and should come up with a matching in such a way that each boy is assigned to a different girl. And in the end, this assignment should be stable in the sense that we won't have a situation just as the one just described in the Wait, Wait, Don't Tell Me segment. This is the way in which the mentioned process would appear when written in pseudocode. That means in a language that is unambiguous, and we have 2 main steps. The first is an initialization and then a loop. In the beginning, all persons are set to be free. Next, the men begin proposing to the girls one by one, and as long as some man is free and hasn't proposed to every woman, we will have one person choosing a woman from his list and proposing to her. So the next man to propose to a girl is taken from a priority queue or some stack, a pool of suitors. This person chooses the first woman in his list to whom he has not yet proposed. If the woman is free, then they both will be engaged. But if the girl is already engaged, then she needs to check her preference list and see if the suitor is preferred to her current partner, her fiancé. In which case, then the suitor and the girl are engaged, while the other person, the previous partner, is said to be free. In other words, is dumped. But if she likes her current partner to the suitor, then she would reject the suitor. Let's see an example of the algorithm in action. At the top we have the men's preference profiles, and at the bottom we have the women's preference profiles. Each row represents the preference list of each of the participants. Victor proposes to Bertha. Bertha is not matched, so she accepts. Then Wyatt proposes to Diane. Diane accepts, since she has not been previously matched. Here comes Xavier, the star of the team, and proposes to Bertha. Bertha hesitates for a little moment, but she takes her list out and discovers that she actually likes Xavier better than Victor. So Bertha dumps Victor and accepts Xavier. Victor feels that hard in the heart, but then recovers and proposes to Amy. Amy is not matched, so she accepts. Yancy approaches Amy from the left and proposes to her. Amy is happy with Victor, so she rejects Yancy. Now Yancy didn't like that, but he recovers soon and proposes to Diane. Diane dumps Wyatt and accepts Yancy. Then comes Wyatt's turn to propose to the next girl on his list, who is Bertha. But Bertha rejects, since she prefers Xavier. Wyatt proposes to Amy, the next girl in his list, and Amy rejects, since she is happy with Victor. Wyatt does not give up and proposes to the next girl on his list, who is Claire. Now this is Claire's first chance to get into action, so she accepts. Here comes Zeus from the back of the field and proposes to Bertha. But Bertha likes Xavier better and she rejects. Zeus then proposes to Diane. Diane rejects Yancy and accepts Zeus. Lucky guy. Yancy comes from the back and proposes to Claire. Claire rejects. This time, Yancy proposes to Bertha. But Bertha clearly prefers Xavier and she rejects. This time, Yancy proposes to Erica. This is Erica's first proposal, so she accepts. So the referee checks that everyone is matched, so the algorithm stops. The game stops, the game is over and everybody is matched, and we have a stable matching. Or do we? I mean, can we be sure that the algorithm as it is will produce a perfect, stable matching? Even a perfect matching, in the sense that no one is left alone or hanging down on a sign? In fact, let's be humble. Can we even make sure that the algorithm is going to ever stop after a finite number of steps? I mean, there are always countless examples by beginner computer scientists of code that would run forever if it's not artificially stopped. How can we make sure that the algorithm, as it is, will stop, will produce a matching which is perfect, and not only perfect, but stable? To see that the algorithm actually stops, we look at the pseudocode describing the algorithm, and we notice the following two facts. First, that men propose to women in decreasing order of preference. That means they start at the top of their list and they go down, they work their way down in their lists, and they never repeat a proposal. And the other fact is, once a woman is matched, she never becomes unmatched. She can only trade up for a guy whom she likes better than the guy she was assigned with before. And we can now prove the following claim, that the algorithm terminates after at most n square iterations of the while loop. And the proof goes as follows. Well, notice that each time we go through the while loop, a man proposes to a new woman. So we would have, let's say, n men, 3 n men, proposing to the same number of women, to n women. So the first guy would propose to n women, and we have n proposals. The second person would propose to n women, and then we have another n proposals, and so on until we reach the last guy. And how many guys do we have? N. So in the end we have n times n, which is equal to n squared. Okay, so that's the maximum number of proposals that there can be, and we are not making any repeated proposal, and no, because of these two observations. So therefore, after at most n square proposals or n square steps, the algorithm is done. Now, actually, this is way more than a bound that is way bigger than the real bound. The real worst case for this algorithm is something like this, where you can see that the preferences are arranged in a cyclic way in this form, and in this case the number of proposals required is n times n minus 1 plus 1, which is very like n squared. In any case, it is a finite number, so that means that the algorithm will always stop. However, it is interesting to regard when does that happen and how does that happen. And if you see, you will see that there's only these two steps, the initialization and the while loop. The only way in which the algorithm terminates is by exiting the while loop down here. And when that happens, it means that this condition no longer holds. And that is the only way to terminate. So, in other words, the algorithm ends when the negation of this condition holds. So let's work on the negation and see what it is. So we do that by parts. The negation of this first part, some man is free, would be all men are assigned. Then this and gets changed into an or, and this other part, the statement, then is negated in this form: has proposed. To every woman. So in other words, the algorithm terminates when either all men are assigned, or there's one guy who has proposed to every woman, or both. Okay? Now, remember also these observations that men propose to women in decreasing order of preference, that once a woman is matched, she never becomes unmatched. She only trades up. And then we are ready to see why the algorithm produces always a perfect matching. To do that, we will follow an argument by contradiction. And it's useful to remember what it is. So from your discrete math classes, you know that if you have a claim you want to prove, and let's say that claim is S, the proof by contradiction goes by as follows. You first begin by assuming, so assume the negation. We first begin by assuming the negation of S, and then we follow logical steps until we find a contradiction, something that cannot hold, that contradicts each other, statements that contradict each other. Then we know that this assumption was wrong, therefore the original statement must be true. And that's the approach that we will follow in this case. So the claim is that all men and women get matched. That's a perfect matching. And we begin by assuming the opposite, that there's one guy, let's say Zeus, that is not matched upon termination of the algorithm. So the algorithm finished, but there's one guy left over. Then because of that, and because men and women are matched in a one-by-one basis, then some woman, let's say Amy, will not be matched upon termination. And then because we know that women become, once they become matched, they never become unmatched, this means that Amy was never proposed to. And then, but Zeus is proposing to everyone, and that's the way he exits, that's the way the algorithm terminates, because he ends up unmatched. And these two statements contradict each other, okay? So if Zeus proposed to everyone, he should have proposed to Amy, and then Amy should have been engaged and not remained alone. So therefore, there is a contradiction between at least these two statements, and we know that this supposition is false, therefore the claim is true. Now, to prove that the algorithm produces a stable solution, we begin by stating the claim: no unstable pairs. This is what we want to prove. And we build an argument by contradiction and begin it by assuming that there is at least one unstable pair. Suppose that that is AZ, is an unstable pair. It means that if they are paired in some solution, say S star, this is a solution produced by Gale-Shapley, by the Gale-Shapley algorithm. Amy appears matched to someone else, and Zeus is matched to some other girl, and we assume that they like each other better than their current partners, so AZ is an unstable pair. Now only two things can happen. Either Zeus never proposed to Amy, or Zeus proposed to Amy. In the first case, if Zeus never proposed to Amy and Zeus ended up matched with Bertha, it means that Zeus prefers his current GS partner, Bertha, to Amy, because men proposed in decreasing order of preferences. Therefore, he is happy with Bertha. He prefers Bertha to Amy. And if that happens, then he would have no motivation to elope with Amy. Therefore, AZ is stable. In the other case, Z proposed to Amy. Well, if that happens, then that means that Amy must have rejected Zeus right away or later, because she ended up matched with Yancy. And that means that Amy prefers her current partner, her current GS partner, who is Yancy, to Zeus. And if she likes Yancy better than Zeus, then that means that she would have no motivation to elope with Zeus, so AZ is stable. In either case, this is a contradiction to the assumption that they are unstable. Therefore, the original claim is true. Well, first of all, we need to notice that there may be more than one stable solution. I mean, of all possible matchings, if we have them, all of them grouped together, we may partition that set into the set of stable matchings. Among those stable matchings, the Gale-Shapley matching will be one of those. But there may be more. On the other side, we have a lot of other matchings that may be unstable. Now, if a given man M and a woman W appear in a pair in one of those stable solutions, it doesn't have to be the Gale-Shapley solution, but any stable solution. As long as they appear in any stable solution, we will call them valid partners. This concept is crucial to understanding the solution. Okay, we define an assignment as a man-optimal assignment when each man receives his best valid partner. Okay, so each man may have more than one valid partner, and Gale-Shapley, as we will claim, will yield a man-optimal assignment, will give each man his best valid partner. And that will happen for each and every man simultaneously. And of course, we need to prove it, because there's no reason a priori to begin with to believe that such an assignment will be perfect and let alone stable. So how do we prove that? Well, we will do that by contradiction. So remember that the claim is that the solution from the Gale-Shapley algorithm, the matching S star, is man-optimal. That's what we want to prove. So we start by assuming the opposites. Suppose that some man, any man, will be paired with someone other than the best valid partner at the end of the Gale-Shapley execution. So we execute the Gale-Shapley algorithm as we define it, and there's a guy who ended up paired with someone else, with someone other than his best valid partner. Let's see where does that lead to. Because men propose in decreasing order of preference, that means that that man was or will be rejected by his best valid partner. Because in the end, after running the Gale-Shapley algorithm, he ended up with someone else. Let's just, for the sake of precision, let's say, assume that Y, Yancey, was the first such man, the first man to be rejected by his best valid partner. And let Amy be the first valid partner that rejects Yancey. Okay, so to see it from another, with more detail, let's say you have this solution S, which does not have to be the Gale-Shapley solution, but there's a stable solution somewhere, and in that stable solution, Amy and Yancey appeared matched together. That's what we mean by valid partners. That's what makes them valid partners, because there's a stable solution in which they are paired. So what happens in the Gale-Shapley solution. We run the algorithm, but Amy didn't end up with Yancy, or Yancy didn't get Amy. It was Zeus who was paired with Amy. And that means, because we know how this solution is obtained, that Amy must have rejected Yancy sometime. Either she dumped him after being engaged with him sometime, or she ended up dumping him, or she downright rejected him from the very first time. But whatever the reason, the fact that Amy ended up with Zeus means that she prefers Zeus to Yancy, because otherwise we would see Yancy in this solution and we're seeing Zeus. Now let's focus on the other hand, on the other side, on this other solution, a stable solution, and let's look at Zeus. Who was Zeus paired with in that solution? Let's say that he was paired with Bertha in that stable solution, and the fact that Zeus ended up with Amy in the Gale-Shapley solution and not with Bertha means that Zeus must prefer Amy to Bertha, because we know how Gale-Shapley works and that men propose in decreasing order of preference. He ends up with Amy. It means that he's happy with Amy, and he did not propose to Bertha. And now let's take a look at these two conclusions. If Amy likes Zeus better than Yancy, and in the second row we read that Zeus prefers Amy better than Bertha, so the conclusion is that this is unstable, that this assignment is unstable. But guess what? This is a contradiction, because we from the beginning we assumed that S was a stable solution, and we are concluding that it is an unstable solution. So it is a contradiction. Therefore, the initial assumption is false and the claim is true. Gale-Shapley will always produce a man-optimal assignment, which means each man gets his best valid partner. Now, obviously, if we can reverse things, we can get the girls to propose to the guys, and then the Gale-Shapley algorithm will yield a woman optimal assignment for the same reasons, or we can follow this algorithm, this argument symmetrically. Congratulations! Now you know that whenever you get a problem in real life, we usually start by stating the problem, and then you saw an example of we doing that, and after that we simplify the problem. Real life problems come usually in a shape and form and a size that are unmanageable, and we need to simplify until we can understand the basic properties of the problem, what makes the problem special, what defines this particular problem, and drop everything else. And based on that, we then design a solution. And this solution should be, of course, a procedure, an algorithm. And then afterwards, we analyze that algorithm. We make claims in the form of mathematical statements, theorems, lemmas, and we prove them. So we prove those claims. And those claims regard very basic questions: whether the algorithm works, whether the algorithm does what it's supposed to do, and claims about its performance, and many other things. But this is the scheme that we will follow in the rest of the class. Thank you very much.